Hi, everybody. I see too many of you woke up for the first talk. I'm sorry about that. My name is Farina, and I'm going to be running through some hacking demonstrations and basically how to use a very cool toy that has bailed me out of a lot of jams. So today we're just going to go ahead and talk about the PwnPhone and what it can do for penetration testing and things like that. Without too much to hide from you all, doing 8 demos, and I've got 600 slides to get through, so we're all going to just pop through this as fast as possible. So who am I? I'm a guy. I do a lot of stuff. Work with computers for a long time. Have my own Linux distro. Husband, father. I like toys. My boss keeps telling me I'm supposed to call them tools, but frankly, this is too much fun for it to be work-related, so just have a little too much fun with all of this. So where did all this start? For me personally, it actually started with a device called the Sharp Zaurus about 10 years ago. I realized that here's a device running Linux. It's got a full keypad, got a compact flash card on the side. I can put a battery on it, put a nice high power Wi-Fi through the USB. Have all kinds of fun with this device. But that was 10 years ago, and the CPU was, oh, look at that, 416 megahertz. That's sweet. 64 megs of RAM. This is what PDAs looked like a decade ago. The tiny little quarters there for size to show you that this is barely something that even fits in your pocket, but it was way more portable than your giant laptop at the time, and it was a lot of fun to run wireless attacks from. Things got a little bit more interesting as time went on. Pony Express developed a product they called the Pwn Pad, and it was basically a Nexus 7 that was running Android, but it was also running a full install of Kali Linux, so that you had the access to all of your Linux-based tools and all of your Android-based tools. So you think to yourself, well, gosh, that's an interesting problem. Guy can come in, install the mobile device manager on his tablet, and then start attacking me from his approved portable device. Super helpful. I thought it was kind of neat. And so really, who needs a computer these days? Honestly, I find that the tablets and whatnot really do the job quite well, mostly because at several points in my career, my laptop has decided to go out to lunch, and the only thing I had with me was my cell phone, and I was still able to do my job. So granted, it's a lot slower to type, but it is still pretty cool to be able to do stuff like that. So today, instead of the pad, we're going to be talking about the phone. This is one of the newer tools that we've got in the arsenal. This is a Nexus 5 phone, USB support, all kinds of fun things right on the device, and we're basically going to be just goofing around with it for a while. I've never given this talk at all. I wrote most of the demos last night and most of the slides this morning, so I have no idea how long this is going to take, which is why I've got my timer right up front. He's going to tell me when I've gone over my time, which is perfect. So I really hate slides. Any questions? I sense that some of you already feel that you're in the wrong place. Yeah, that's not a problem, actually. So what we're going to do, we're going to just jump right out of this stupid, boring presentation, and we're going to look at what's going on my phone. I'm going to take this, we're going to orient it like this. So for those of you that already realize that you're in the wrong place, that's not a problem. Don't worry about it. You don't even have to actually get up out of your seat, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see what's going on in track 2. So I'm going to open up our tool set here, and we're going to find SDR Touch. What SDR Touch is a Android app that controls this little dongle right here, which is a Realtek RTL SDR, and it can simply tune through the frequency set. Screen resolution's not the best, but you can kind of see what we're doing here. Let me turn this guy to the side to make him a little bigger. All right, so we're going to lock this down to 54.677115 megahertz. I know that doesn't mean much to most of you, but the guys over at the booth here are shaking their heads in disapproval. What we're basically doing is took one of those pictures off of Twitter that somebody was nice enough to show how awesome the AV setup was, where the frequencies for the microphones were clearly listed on it. And then we're just going to start decoding audio and see what we get. So hopefully Eric's gotten started, and we can see what he's doing.
In. Over the larger plot, remember most of your coverage is actually in that last few degrees of the antenna pattern.
That come over pretty well?
That's what you see at 1,000 meters.
So should I just keep playing this, or do you guys want me to keep talking?
Now, what happens?
I don't really care what you want. Come on. Look at me. I'm just a kid in a candy store. But let's be honest, these RTL SDRs, they're only listen-only devices. They're not very exciting. Now, what we could do instead is pop this hack RF in place and start transmitting over the same frequency. It's simple FM, shouldn't be too difficult. Does anybody think that his audience would appreciate a Rickroll? I think they would too, but because they're recording it, I'm going to decide to be really polite about that and not do it. Sorry. I know, I'm ruining it already. All the fun is just taken out of it when I do these things. Okay, so in addition to the fun that you can have with the Android applications and RTL SDR, we've also got some interesting Bluetooth attacks that we can go through here. Hey, come back, please keep working. I swear my demo worked before. Yeah, already connected. You don't look already connected. Yeah, I'm on you. Behave yourself. Oh, boo. Just one moment, as I said before, this was kind of put together at the last possible second just to make lives harder. I mean, you rejected my shell command. What's wrong with you? Come on, you can do it. Apologize for technical difficulties. You're welcome to laugh as though this was one of the jokes. Thank you. Thank you. Hecklers always keep it from being quiet, and I really appreciate that. Oh, there you go. Who needs an IP address, right? I have, actually, on the victim machine that I'm going to use in a few minutes if I can keep this stuff working.
Did you reboot? Yeah.
I did try turning it off and on again. That normally does the trick.
Check the TCP/IP setting.
LOIT.
Hey.
I know. It's like it's my first day. Alrighty. So in addition to not accidentally breaking my network settings again, let's go through and try a different attack. So we're going to move over to the Bluetooth attack suite. And we're going to run something called Bluetooth scan, which is apparently deciding that it doesn't like me at all. How's my USB hub doing? Better now. Boop. There we go. So as my screen catches up real quick, it's on about a 5-second delay. Here is Bluetooth device scanning right from the device. We've got a simple high-power Bluetooth plugged in, and it's going to go through and start scanning and find people's laptops and things like that. The most entertaining thing I found while I was prepping this is there's apparently a Mac somewhere called Admin's Mini Mac or something. Thought that was kind of funny. We can do a real quick Bluetooth scan, start finding devices, and hopefully see something entertaining, although mostly it looks like my phone running out of power, so we'll keep going so that I don't completely run out of demo. Okay, once we're done with the Bluetooth scanning stuff, my favorite tool on here as a Wi-Fi guy as we circle back into the Wi-Fi attacks, it's actually a little program called Wi-Fi. What Wi-Fi does, as soon as I actually plug in a wireless card for it, what Wi-Fi does is it's actually going to be able to scan the airspace looking for things that are worthwhile to attack and run those attacks automatically. So fix my screen here. There we go. So it's going to give me a list of different wireless devices that are attached to my phone here. We're going to start with WLAN 1, which is the high power external, and we're just going to go through and tell it to start the monkey business. First thing it's going to do is scan looking for victims, any access points in the area that we wish to attack. And once it's done there, it's going to give me a list of all the interesting things to hack. Oh, look, somebody's offered me a nice web network to go after already. God, I love when people help the demos. That's just super helpful. So all we have to do is tell it to stop scanning. And then it'll give me a list of different networks to attack, including ones that I can say all, just attack everything and opportunistically crack whatever you can, or I can pick one in specific. We could start cracking web keys on stage, but I have no idea whose access point this is, and strictly speaking, that's kind of federally illegal, so I'm just going to avoid it since their camera is on. You guys want to turn the camera off? No, okay, we'll skip that part. I'm a good person, really I am, I think. Now we're going to move on to some of the more advanced attacks. One of the most advanced attacks, the ones that people really think about most, is the Karma attack. Karma attack is the attack implemented by the Wi-Fi Pineapple. It basically runs an access point that is set up to capture all of the clients by simply responding to whatever names they're probing for. So as soon as you say, I'm looking for this network, it says, oh yeah, that's me. And then somebody else says, oh, I'm looking for a different network. Oh, that's me too. And it'll just keep bringing those client devices in as rapidly as possible until it runs out of resources and can't handle it anymore. Since we're doing this with raw frame injection, we're pretty much limited to the CPU. CPU on this guy is a couple of different cores, and they're all like 2-something gigahertz. 2 gigs of RAM means this is a little bit better than most of the access points you all have at home and or sell. So it can hold quite a few clients. Throughput's definitely not awesome, but it can manage those clients pretty well and certainly enough to attack. So we'll go ahead and start this attack. Remember when I said thank you for bringing your devices into my talk? Thanks for everybody that hasn't turned theirs off yet. So we're going to continue. Welcome to the Evil AP. Which interface would you like to use for internet? Well, right now we'll just go ahead and I could offer internet off my 4G card, but to be honest, I've been using it a little too much, so we're just going to offer a fake connection off of the internal Wi-Fi, which isn't currently connected to anything. So the people that connect to me will not actually get man in the middle. They will not actually be attacked, except for my victim. So we set our SSID, public wireless. That seems pretty legit. I'm sure that's a real network name. Default channel can set to whatever we want, 1. And then it's going to say, would you like to gather everybody in the world, or would you like to not? So if I choose option 1, this is going to respond no matter what you look for. If I choose option 2, it's only going to respond to a targeted attack. Again, these are penetration testing tools, not things designed strictly for causing as much damage as humanly possible. Sure, that's the fun part, but normally the client does not actually give you authorization to or pay you to hack everybody in the airspace. You have a specific engagement, a specific target, and you can set up things just for that specific target so you're not catching hundreds of people in the crossfire. So we'll go ahead and say, do not gather every client under the sun, and just pretend that we're really polite. So what this is going to do now is it's going to start up, and it's going to run the DHCP server, and it's going to start up an access point, and then it's going to just start responding to anybody looking for public wireless. So if you really want to be part of the demo, it is still optional. You can go ahead and connect on purpose, but we're not going to take the accidental connections for this demo right now. Once we've got an access point running, there's a whole slew of things that you really have an option for. So here's all the people probing that I would be picking up, but I'm being polite. Oh, directed probe request from me. Okay, people do want to be a part of the demo. That's great. I'll tell you how in just a minute. Once we've got people on the local area network with us, we can move from the realm of Wi-Fi attacks to the realm of regular network attacks, because in fact they're just on the network with us. So we can open up our network attack toolkit. Personal favorite, you normally start with just some basic fingerprinting tools. You can run Nmap, you can run TCP dump, you can grab whatever you can see from those devices. Nmap is going to probe the device, look for what operating system it's running, look for open ports, service versions, what services are you running on the device. Very quick and easy to identify and fingerprint devices, and then choose how you're going to attack them manually. Slightly less manually, you can turn on SSL strip. SSL strip is available as well. You can use SSL strip to simply convert all websites that have a link that says HTTPS and change it to HTTP. So it essentially tries its absolute hardest to make sure that all connections stay unencrypted, so that I can use even simpler tools such as StringsWatch. And all StringsWatch does is it looks at the network traffic and grabs out any strings that are going through, plain text stuff that is readable, so that we can go through and just see kind of what's going on. StringsWatch is really helpful, but it's not all that helpful when you've got a large crowd when you're trying to do something like this. So what I normally switch over to would be something like Dsniff or Ettercap. Dsniff and Ettercap are tools that are built specifically for extracting the passwords from whatever you're doing. So if you connect to an HTTP server and you send username and password string through that, it'll pick out just the username and password, so I don't have to look through all the plain text and try to figure out what I really want. It's just going to pull those usernames and passwords and things like that. It's a lot of fun. It works very well. Because it works very well, I'm again not going to demo just how well that works. I'm going to move right into the really fun demo, which is where I'm going to show you what this looks like if you are the poor victim side. So we've got a couple other tools on here, SET being one of them. SET is the social engineering toolkit. It's a really, really great piece of software. It offers a nice menu-driven interface that can do all kinds of fun things. My personal favorite is the site cloner. What you can do is you can direct SET to a specific website, I don't know, like the splash page for this hotel, and it's going to take that, make a perfect copy of it, and give it to you so that you can present it as though it was your website. That seems really convenient, but gee, what do you do after that? You run Metasploit. Metasploit is the premier attack toolkit. It contains all of the different attacks that one might wish to do. It's basically every patch Tuesday, when Microsoft comes out with all of their patches, the fabulous folks over at Metasploit will reverse engineer all of those, come out with the actual exploits against the bugs that you were patching, and now on Metasploit Wednesday, you've got all of your stuff ready to go to attack the people that didn't patch on 24-hour notice. So that's super handy. Before we start that part of the demo, I'm just going to set this guy up because he will take a moment to load. All right, so what are we actually going to do with Metasploit? Metasploit is a very command line driven, slightly esoteric to use, beautiful bit of arcane magic. That said, I could be typing up here the whole time, but then I can't tell how disapproved you all look because I can't type very quickly anymore. So instead, I've scripted out most of this stuff. So I'll show you what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is very simply, we're going to delete all of our temp files from before. We're going to run Metasploit with an RC file, which is a file that simply contains all of the commands that I want it to run. Okay. Flashbang is the file that Metasploit is going to run. The first thing it's going to do once Metasploit loads is it's going to start up something called browser auto-pwn. Okay? So I've got a cloned version of the hotel's splash page. And then I'm going to start up something called browser auto-pwn. It's going to listen on my local machine. It's going to set the port and the URI to whatever I feel like setting it to. It's going to set a reverse handler and a listener for incoming connections. And then in this case, I'm going to set a match on MS-12. That means any exploit that matches MS-12, that is Microsoft exploits from 2012, is going to be loaded and it's going to run. If I don't set this match, the problem is it will load about 50 exploits and many of you will be vulnerable to them. So as part of nerfing the demo, I am very specifically running this against an older known vulnerable system. That said, has anybody heard about the latest exploits in, I don't know, Flash? Or maybe Java? So we can all probably agree that we can just move on from the fact that I'm using an old machine because it's not like exploits don't come out every couple of days. We can get this to work on brand new systems. I'm purposefully choosing not to engage all of you quite that closely with the presentation. Set match on Java was my first attempt at this. It was the funniest thing in the world. It would run 7 Java exploits, and at any given time, 5 of them would return full control over the machine. So when it started to run the next command, it would actually be running it 5 times, and my scripts were overwriting themselves. So I had to pick something else that was a little more, a little easier to control. Once it's done there, it's going to run a script on the victim machine called Evil Black Hat RC. Okay. We're going to run a server for capturing HTTP on port 80. We could also run it on 443 and 8080. Why would you want to do that? Think about things like cell phones or automatic browser configuration. They can hit a proxy. They can hit a browser with 443 automatically. They're looking for things like splash pages, proxy configurations. So realistically, this attack can work even without any user interaction at all. Your phone's probing for a known SSID, I provide it, you connect, it checks if there's a splash page so it can tell you, and literally you didn't have to do anything other than turn the screen of your phone on, and it will actually engage you in this attack pretty rapidly. Fake DNS, in this case we're going to run a fake DNS server and resolve everything to my host machine, and we're going to allow me to just bypass one. So if you go to evilhackerdomain.com, you'll get the real website. If you go to any other website, you'll just get little old me. As commented out, the DHCP server in Metasploit seems to be wildly unreliable for me, so I just don't use it. That's all well and good, but once we have access to the machine, what are we going to do? Well, we can have a little bit of fun. We're going to start by running get system. That's going to try to elevate my privileges from whoever I was all the way up through system user on the machine that is above administrator, that is more control over your own system than you typically have. Then we're going to run get countermeasures. We're going to try to kill any countermeasures that are running, host intrusion detection and prevention systems, antiviruses, you know, whatever. Then we can take a screenshot of the desktop. We will upload it back to the victim machine so that I don't have to type 1,000 times. It makes my life a whole lot easier if I don't have to type everything out. We can run a credentials collection. We can run a check for the virtual machine to see if we are in a virtual machine or not. Then we can check all of the hashes on the machine, that is the encrypted password stores and things like that. One second, just gotta fix my other script here. Yep. Okay, so we can run a hash dump, grab all the encrypted passwords, then we can take a webcam snapshot. You know, all the laptops are set up for video conferencing. That's really helpful. So we can take a quick snapshot off the camera, see what's going on. Then we're going to upload that picture back to the victim to say hello. While they're looking at themselves, we're going to record audio off of the microphone on the machine and see what they have to say about their own pretty face. Then we're going to upload that back to them so they can listen to it. And while they're listening to themselves curse about what's happening, we're going to load a special module called Mimikatz. And what Mimikatz does is it actually goes into the RAM of the Windows machine, pulls out the password in plain text, and displays it to me. Once we're done with all that, we're going to upload the full capture logs from the attacking box up to the victim machine. This is mostly because the projector absolutely hates me when I yank the VGA cable out back and forth constantly, so I try only to switch once or twice during the presentations. So normally nothing will appear on the victim machine, but all these lines in here that say upload, these are for my benefits that I don't have to swap back and forth for doing this. So I've had at least one demo kind of fail on me, but who here thinks that none of this is actually going to happen and I'm totally full of it? No? All right, there we go. Thank you. Audience participation, please. I know I'm not that funny, but we could try to pretend I'm that funny. Okay. So this guy is loading up, and we are going to switch from my laptop that I'm using to present. And we're going to switch to the view from the victim side of this to show you just what all this looks like. To be careful with my little victim here. She's a delicate flower. Let's see if we can get this guy to work. All right. So this is my victim machine. You can tell because it's got a sweet pink rainbow on it. I could not find any My Little Pony stickers when I was setting this thing up, so this was the best I could do. And what this device is literally the cheapest piece of junk that I could find at Walmart on the day that I needed a victim machine to demo from. The reason for buying an absolutely cheap piece of junk is not just because I'm a cheap SOB, but the fact is if I run this attack against a machine that's very quick, it's over so quickly I can't explain to you what's happening, and that's just no fun for anybody, right? So we want this attack to run in not real time, but in the time it takes me to explain stuff. And that makes my life just a little bit easier. Okie dokie. Just about ready here. So this machine is very simply a Windows machine set up to connect to my victim network on purpose. Again, we could run this as a standard Karma style attack where it will accept anything that I'm looking for, Panera Bread, ATT Wi-Fi, whatever. In this case, we've got public wireless that we're going to connect to, and we'll see just how terrible that all turns out to be. So the first thing it's going to do is print up whatever loading screen that I have. Again, to make sure that this attack does not land on too many people accidentally, I am not going to actively be spoofing Hyatt right now. Shocker, again, I'm just a coward when it comes to people videoing me on stage, and I don't like to horribly violate federal law when it's being recorded. You can see down at the bottom as it keeps flashing little updates. What it's actually doing is it's spawning hundreds of iframes in the background, and it's giving you a full list of Twitter, Bing.com, Google.com, Facebook, and it's loading an invisible frame in the background telling your computer to go to all of those sites. Now, why would it do that? Saved passwords, first try. I love this crowd. So here's what happens. Your computer saves all of the passwords, and this offers a nice little auto-submit form that it fills in and sends them to me. Now, maybe you didn't save your passwords. That's fine, because HTTP is a stateless protocol. What does that mean? It means the server has no idea if you're logged in. You have to log in every single time. But you don't have to log in every time you make a request, right? I mean, that just wouldn't work. So what do? They store a little file on your computer called a cookie, and that cookie gets sent with every single request to that server. So it stores a Facebook cookie that tells Facebook, not your username and password. I don't need a username and password. I'm already logged in, Mr. Facebook. And so when you see me, even if your passwords aren't auto-saved, your computer's going to save those cookies whether you like it or not. And I'm going to grab those cookies off of your machine so that now I can be logged in immediately without ever knowing your username or password, which is a little bit handy sometimes depending on what your goal is. This is the part of the demo that I actually know is going to fail. Don't worry, not everything is going to fail, just some of the fun. So the latest version of Metasploit apparently does not like to detect my computer properly, so I actually have to point it a little bit better to the attack. So just 1 second, let me fix this guy. Come on, tiny screen. Things that are so much quicker on a larger screen are definitely more fun on these. Okay. There we go. So because this box is a little bit older, Metasploit doesn't actually detect it properly, so I have to point it towards the specific exploit. What it normally does is it tries to detect what operating system you're running, and then it's going to go through and send you the correct exploit. Because this one's a little out of date, that doesn't work so hot anymore. Whoa. And as for my favorite with doing actual attacks instead of completely fake attacks, every once in a while, instead of actually getting me full control over your machine, all it does is crash the browser. Turns out that's about 20% of the time, but it seems to happen every time I'm doing this on stage. So first one is definitely a failure, and second one seems to be working quite nicely. So we'll give this guy just a second to do his horrible business. So right now it has already gotten a shell on my victim machine. Again, if I switch back and forth, it makes the poor video production really difficult, so I'm going to just give it a minute to do its thing. But what it's actually doing is it's got a shell on the machine and it's migrating out of the Internet Explorer process into another process, because Internet Explorer typically is, well, I'd say it's unstable when you exploit it, but the fact of the matter is it's kind of unstable to start with. So it's just going to go ahead and move into another process and then try to run my script and see how things go. So it is just migrating out right now, and just in time for Internet Explorer to crash. And if we are lucky, it is going to start running my auto run script in a second. Yep, there we go. So now it is grabbing full privileges on the machine. It has successfully escalated itself up to system, which should give it the access that it needs to do what it wants to do. Now it is trying to kill the countermeasures on the system to see if it can, remove the Windows firewall and the antiviruses and things like that, just to give itself a little more headroom to work. Again, I normally do this in front of people who have little to no idea of what they're doing, so the explanations are typically a good bit longer. I could explain to you that antiviruses are meant to catch things like this, and that's why we have to kill them, but in fact, I just have to dance here while it does its thing very, very slowly. The very slowly part is my sweet little Atom netbook here. The phone can actually run the attack in about 30 seconds, but it's really hard to explain that quickly even to a good audience, so we'll let it go through. So, okay, so it is checking my firewall, disabling it, taking a screenshot of my desktop. On this one, no, there isn't any antivirus. So now it is uploading stuff back to my desktop. And in just a second, we should have a nice, shiny desktop snapshot. I'm totally ahead of where I thought I'd be on the battery life, so we're doing really good. When I was testing this up in the room, I managed to successfully kill the phone battery and did not have all that much time to charge, so sweetness. Come on, you. There we go. So here is the super secret file stolen by the hacker, and this is a screenshot of the desktop that was taken from the attacking machine and then uploaded back to the victim machine. What it's doing now is going through that script that I read to you earlier, so it's checking if it's in a virtual machine and going to return whether it thinks it's in a virtual machine or not. Then it's going to run some credentials collections, and fairly shortly here it should turn on the camera and take a picture, but you know, I'm not all that pretty, so we'll just go ahead and move this stuff out of the way. Get a really nice snapshot of you folks. I can tell that I'm doing really good on time because the next speaker's not even looking at me.
Rich, while that's running, what's the recommended wireless adapter? Because I know that I've got.
I'm gonna throw it.
You can throw it at me, that's fine. Recommended USB wireless adapter, because I've put Pwn Pad on Nexus 7 2013, and I've done Kali and other ones on it, and I seem to have issues finding adapters that are stable enough on it. I've done the TP-Link, I've done AirPCAP NXs. What's your recommended, and do you always recommend using external power sources as well with the OTG cables, or what?
So right now I'm actually doing this with no external power, which is why everything lasts for about 2 hours and then it dies. Realistically speaking, if you can externally power everything, you just take an external USB hub and you power that hub, and that saves you huge amounts of time on the battery life. Some devices, notably the Nexus 7, the Nexus 9, everything I've tested except for the Nexus 5 are capable of using a device called a Y cable. So instead of just a regular OTG cable which plugs into the micro on the phone and presents you with a real USB cable, the Y cables provide an additional leg that is for power. And not only can you inject to the USB device, but you can inject to the tablet and charge it. The guys who made the power chip for the Nexus 5 whiffed it on that, and if there's anything plugged into the USB, it will not allow you to charge unless it's a dedicated charger only and it doesn't see anything else. So it's a design choice made by the Nexus 5 power chip provider. But you can still use a USB power source to power the external devices to save a lot of the battery. The phone can actually push out a shocking amount of power. I showed the HackRF, and you know, that's kind of funny to see something larger than the phone being powered by the phone, but you can actually take this phone and charge a tablet from it. It pushes out 650 milliamps, so it's a lot of power. I mean, I'm running an Ethernet and a wireless card, and I could still put the Bluetooth back on there and not run out of power budget. So not that I recommend having everything in the world plugged in drawing from your battery, but you totally can if you want to. As for the adapters, for the phones themselves and for the pads themselves, Pwnie Express specifically sells a kit that has the Ethernet that I'm using, the wireless card that I'm using, the Bluetooth that I'm using. They also list what they're on the site, so you don't have to buy the kit from Pwnie. You can just buy the kit. These Bluetooth devices are like 35 bucks. They're a Sena 100 USB. They're decent, high power, the whole 9 yards. These USBs for the Wi-Fi are the single most common recommendation among all of the hacker community. It's called a TP-Link WN722N. You can find that both on Pony Express's website and the group that I'm a part of that does the wireless capture the flag for DEF CON and other conventions like that. You can actually find a parts list of hardware that we recommend and things like that. This is literally the second best Wi-Fi card I've ever tested, and it's $13 on Amazon. So rather than buying the best wireless card I test, which is about 50 bucks on Amazon, I buy 3 or 4 of these, and now I can monitor all of 2.4 gigahertz at once, and it's kind of handy. Works out quite well. So while I have been flapping my gums just a little bit longer than anticipated, this happy guy not only has a lovely picture to show you all. Who was watching the screen? Did you notice the little light turn on in the webcam? No, that's because it didn't. So here's a lovely picture of the audience. Thank you very much for your crowd participation. I'll probably not tweet that later. Let's see, who's actually paying attention? Let's see, you're paying attention, you're paying attention, and then not so much. I guess I missed the mark on that. That's fine. No problem. I don't take it personally. And then part of being the cheapest piece of junk in the world, this is now going to, it actually recorded me already, and it is just uploading the files real quick, so it's going to take a second, and then we can listen to what in the world I was saying when it decided to turn on the microphone. But yeah, the hardware list is fairly complete. You can buy all kinds of stuff. With the product, if you purchase it, you get support, or you can download the community edition, which is free. We don't actually ship stuff like the RTL SDR because most of the customer base just doesn't need things like that. And honestly, we specifically haven't done anything all that special with it. We've got a bunch of little scripts and wrappers and stuff for all the other tools, but this just has nice Android software that you don't even need to use the Linux side of the house. You just load the Android app and you're good to go. So let's take a little listen to what in the world I was saying.
Who was watching the screen? Did you notice the little light turn on the webcam? No, that's because it didn't. So here's a lovely picture of the audience. Thank you very much.
That's super quiet because this is the cheapest netbook known to man, but we have me flapping my gums in a WAV file, which is just super exciting for all of you who missed me flapping my gums the first time. Once it is completed, it's actually going to go through and take the entire log of all of the Metasploit console output and dump it to the text file and drop it on the victim machine again, just to save me from trying to scroll back and forth on a tiny screen or things like that. So we've got a free little picture of a shell. It says, "I love shells," signed Egypt. Egypt is a wonderful person. We can go through, and here's the automatic setup that we talked about earlier, setting up all of the things that I showed you in the script. And then here is what happens when the user connects. Here is actually loading all of the domains, returning fake A records for Facebook.com, for eAcademy, Career Builder, LinkedIn, Google, blah, 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 blah. You kind of get the point. What you might not necessarily be getting the point on is all of the cookies that are actually in here, because it is not word wrapping. So as we start to get down to Career Builder, here is Career Builder cookie indicating that I was signed in. Here is Facebook cookie, gather.com, gmail.google.com, google.com, monster.com. So all of these little cookies right here indicate whatever my session state last was. So if I logged out and told it I don't want to be logged in anymore, then it'll indicate that I was logged out. But if I'm one of those people who just closes the browser, now you have full access to that account. And the best part is once you have a logged in cookie, it doesn't actually really expire very often typically. Things like changing the password don't affect it because I didn't steal the password, I stole something that says I'm already logged in. The other thing you can do, since you have full control over the network connection, is you can actually fake the connection between the Facebook server and you and say, when you set this cookie next, set it to never expire so that you have a better cookie to steal for later. So here's just a whole stack of cookies that came off of my machine, which is just super wonderful. I don't actually use this machine, but if you want to comb through the video and steal some of these and see what's up, then be my guest. So here is Browser Autopwn running the MS 2012-004 MIDI exploit It is a exploit that attacks Windows Media Player, which is one of the browser plugins. So you can attack anything that is connected to the browser in any way. So PDF viewers, Flash viewers, Java, things like that are pretty easy because the browser will actually tell you not just that they're installed, but what versions they're running and things like that, so you know exactly how to attack them. So sending the auto pwn, and then here is actually getting into my session. So here is running command get system, got system via technique 1, so now it went from a user account to a system level account. Running get countermeasures, checking for countermeasures, killing anything it sees, checking Windows built-in firewall, optional but completely operational and turned on. Anyone know what Windows firewall blocks on the local area network? That's exactly the right answer. It blocks nothing at all, because otherwise file sharing and printing wouldn't work. And you really want file and printer sharing to work when you're on the network with me, right? I mean, that's important. Yeah, so it doesn't block anything. Checking the data execution policy, taking a picture of the desktop, uploading the picture of the desktop, checking if it's a VM, it appears to be a physical host. Credentials collection. Here's my administrator hashes and my user hash. Go ahead, feel free to crack those. Certainly won't stop you. I'll tell you what the password is in plain text in just a minute. Collecting tokens. Got the local service, network service, system, 0, and anonymous. So 0 is the user I'm logged in as, and then it elevates itself through system and local service to get to the full ability to take over the machine. So each one of these levels that it had to jump through actually creates a token. What a token is it's used on a network to tell other hosts who you are and that you have already authenticated, similar to a cookie. So when you log into a remote file server, you log in once and then it creates a token that you then pass back to that machine to say, oh no, it's me, I'm still ready to go. So by collecting those tokens that are already on the machine, anything that you're currently logged into, now I can pass that token and pretend to be on there. Okay, so I'm getting a kill, so we'll keep going because the next guy hasn't given me too much of a funny face yet, but he is paying attention to his watch now. That's good. So we run hash dump, obtain the boot key. So here's the hboot key using syskey. This is the key that Windows uses for full disk encryption. So what does full disk encryption encrypt when the system is running? Nothing that's in the RAM. It has to know how to decrypt the hard drive all the time, so it just kind of leaves the key to decrypt the hard drive in the RAM. So no problems there. Now we can decrypt the hard drive when the system's off later. Check the user keys, dump in the password hints. 0's password hint is this is a good password hint. That seems to be good. I like that. Dump the password hashes through an alternative mechanism just to make sure that it worked. Grab a webcam snapshot, upload the webcam snapshot, record room audio, upload room audio, load Mimicat success, running wdigest as system, retrieving credentials, and here we have NTLM, domain, victim, user, 0, password. This is a good password. In reality, that is a very good password, right? It's a very long password. Trying to crack that through both dictionary or brute force would be basically impossible. My last comment to all of you is please remove password from your lexicon. There is no such word. Password doesn't make any sense at all because it means that all of you come up with ridiculous, very complex passwords that you can't possibly remember, and you end up putting on sticky notes on the underside of your keyboard. Yes, we all know that you do that. And when you put them on the underside of your keyboard, it makes my life way too easy to break in, and it's boring. So with that said, use passphrase. I personally like quotes from video games, songs, books, favorite authors. I'm not going to give you too much of the hint, but you get the idea. Words are easy to remember, sentences are easy to remember, and even if you have to change it with a fair amount of frequency, you can remember what's going on. So with that said, there's a Ninja on my tablet. Are there any questions?